tradition. Feel so alive. Summer rhythms flame. We're gonna thrive. Go, go, go. Oh, shout it aloud. Hear the summer sun. We're a summer loving crowd. Talking Brazil ball. We're breaking it down.
Hello and welcome to Talking Brazil Ball, the podcast all about Brazilian football. We're here on match day one of the Brasileirão 2025, and there's been lots going on in the opening weekend. The top two from last year cancel each other out. Fortaleza pick up where they left off, and there's been a managerial casualty already. All of that and so much more to come in today's show. Right, so we're off, George. I'm your host, James. I'm here as always, and like I said, I'm here with my co-host George. And George, we're back with match day one of the Brasileirão. We're underway. We've given it the big build-up, and it's finally here. How are you feeling ahead of the season's opening show?
Well, yeah, no, looking forward to it, James. You know, the fun begins again, doesn't it? Like I said, we've given it the big build-up, a couple of months really, and now we're here, we're here for match day one, the reviewing of it. Plenty coming. Funny for people there watching on YouTube, it looks like I'm heading the ball myself behind me there. But, yeah, looking forward to it, James. Plenty going on, plenty to speak about, as always, and, looking forward to getting into it with you today.
Yep, lots to cover. So let's get cracking straight on. We've got anybody who's been listening over the winter break will know we've had a few new songs, a few new jingles and things put together. So George, you've been in charge of that. I believe we've got a quiz jingle, haven't we? So I'm going to play that before you do your famous quiz. I haven't heard this yet, so let's see what we get. There you go. No, I have heard that actually. Yeah, it's a good kind of chiller one, isn't it? That, I like that.
Yeah, it's a nice, relaxed one. Like I said, the question is, will James get it right? Will you get it right for the quiz of the week? And yeah, of course, I've got another one today for you, James. So yeah. But before we get on, I suppose I should say, come over to you.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, fine. Looking forward to getting into the quiz. Really, I can't think of anything else. So. Let's hit the quiz.
Right, well, okay, well, fair enough. Well, so the quiz, James, is surrounding the opening day of the Brasileirão season 2025, but also incorporates last season's 2024 opening weekend. So 22 goals, James, were scored over the weekend in the opening fixtures of the Brasileirão 2025 edition. But what I want to know, James, is how many goals were scored in the opening day of 2024? And also, do you feel it was higher or lower than this season?
I actually can't remember the opening day of last year at all. I feel like 22 is quite low for 10 games, to be honest, so I'll go higher. And guess probably 31.
It is higher. You were very close, James. It's not quite 31. 28 goals were scored in the opening weekend of the 2024 Serie A. And, 22 this weekend. Like you said, seems relatively low, really, when you look at it.
Yeah, let's hope that's not a kind of a foreshadow of the season to come. We don't want less goals. We always want more goals, but things can be cagey on the opening day. You sometimes get the odd freak result in the Premier League, especially, but we didn't really get any of those. I wouldn't say it was quite kind of cagey. It was tight. There weren't many goals in any of the games, really. But there you go. Well done, George. That was a good quiz of the week. I think that was the only question. I don't know. You've sometimes got a follow-up, haven't you?
Yeah, no, it wasn't, Jay. I always say, don't I? It's a double-barreled one or whatever. So there was just the one question this week. So you got it. Yeah, you did a good job of that one, I would have said.
Yeah, one out of two, really, if there was two questions, two answers. So I guess the question was, James did get it right, or half of it anyway. Right, we'll have another quiz of the week next week, won't we, George? That's good. I like that little jingle. And like I say, we've got a few more, so stay tuned for all the usual awards. There might be a few new bells and whistles attached to Talking Brazil Ball this season as we progress. Right, George. Well, for the first time this season, then, let's start, as we always do after the quiz, of course, with a first rundown from yourself of the weekend's fixtures. Obviously, it started Saturday, went into Monday, I think it was, or did it go all the way into Tuesday?
It was midnight on Tuesday in England. The last game played Red Bull Bragantino against Ceará. So
of course, a good result for Ceará, as we'll get into. So, why don't you, George, for the first time in 2025? I bet you've missed this, haven't you? I'm trying to remember which song it is. I think it's this one, isn't it? So let's give it a go.
It is that one. Well remembered, James. So it started on Saturday the 29th of March, the Brasileirão 2025 edition. Cruzeiro 2, Mirassol 1, Fortaleza 2, Fluminense 0, Grêmio 2, Galo 1. Disappointment for me again on Saturday, James. Juventude 2, Vitória 0. And Sao Paulo 0, newly promoted Sporting Recife 0. Into Sunday, the 30th of March, in Flamengo 1, Inter 1, Palmeiras 0, Fogo 0, Vasco 2, Santos 1. Monday the 31st, Bahia 1, Corinthians 1. And then, like we said, it ended the match week, James, Tuesday the 1st of April, RB Bragantino 2, Ceará 2.
That's it. As you said, 22 goals, some of them good ones, not many stand out, as we'll get into later, of course, when we touch on the goal of the round. But as ever, George, we've obviously picked a game of the round each, and there was no real, there was no discussion about these two, really. But before we do get into that, there has been some relative breaking news before we came on air this evening. As I mentioned at the top of the show, there was a managerial casualty already, which is, for watchers of the Brazilian league, for us already, we know that is not particularly unusual. After just one game, it might seem very premature in some countries, but not in Brazil, where they've had the pre-season games, the regional tournaments and everything. So, George, Mano Menezes, your mate, I don't think you'll have to work out how to say his name anymore, because he has been relieved of his duties following Fluminense's 2-0 loss against Fortaleza at the Castelão. So your reaction to that, and also your reaction to the news that they have appointed former Grêmio manager Renato Gaucho, who I know you're a bit of a fan of.
Yeah, I mean, amazement, really, James. I mean, I shouldn't be amazed, because we know how they are in Brazil. They do like to pull the trigger quickly. But for me, I mean, after one game, I mean, come on, give him a shot. I know they won last night, didn't they, in the Sudamericana, Fluminense. So maybe just sacking Mano was the trick, but was a tonic they needed. But look, I think it's ridiculous, to be quite honest. I mean, why not get rid of him before the season started? It's one game in. It's one game in. Fortaleza had an amazing season last season. Let him have at least 2 games. Come on. But I think Renato Gaucho, you're right, James. A good appointment. I'm a fan of him. I thought Grêmio were right to stick with him through last season. So I'm excited to see what he can do with it. I won't be, out of line to say a better squad that he has at his disposal in Fluminense than he did at Grêmio. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how he does. He's got the full season to go at it. So, yeah, I don't know if he's ever been there before, James, at all, but I know they do like to, sack and then reappoint managers quite often.
I think he has. I think I read that it was his 3rd stint actually at Flu. Yeah, he's been there. He was there in 2000. He was there in 96 as an interim. He was there in 2002. He was there in 2009. Actually, he was there in 2014. So it's actually, it's his 4th permanent go at Flu. So
wow,
been there as well for a couple of years. He obviously knows the club very, very well. So yeah, like you said, a good manager. He's had success in the Brasileirão before. For Mano, it's a tough one. I mean, they lost to Flamengo in the Carioca final. It was only 2-1 over 2 legs. That's, no disgrace in that. Prior to that, they'd been having a decent kind of Carioca. They'd progressed in the Copa do Brasil. Yeah, I mean, what can you say? Obviously, things weren't quite right, and we know that if they sense things aren't quite right, then they're not shy to get rid. And obviously, Mano kept them up last year. He didn't get any credit in the bank from that, and he's been sacked. So, anyway, we might touch on Flu a little later on. I don't know if we will get into it too much, but just wanted to update the listeners and let them know that there has already been the first casualty, and they've moved swiftly to replace him. So, George, let's move on to the games of the round then before we let time get away from us. So we'll start, I think, with your game of the round, which was the big one, really. And as ever, I think you've started the season as you mean to go on, haven't you, with another 0-0 draw, a staple of your season last season, and you've started with the big one of the round, and of course it was 0-0, Botafogo versus Palmeiras.
Well, you could have put your house on that, James. You know what I mean? Like I said, how many did I have last season? I'm going to count them this season. How many am I going to get? And like you said, it was true to form. Of course, it was 0-0. And, and of course, Abel Ferreira was mouthing off, at people and, all the sort of staples of it. I actually watched the game, James, or the majority of it. As you know, I was texting you, wasn't I, during the game a little bit, and I wanted to watch it, not just because it was my game of the week. It was just billed as this amazing game, first game. Who'd have thought it? Whoever fixes these fixtures up, they've really on paper put a humdinger in there, but it was anything but that. On the actual gameplay, it was a horrible game, to be quite honest. It was really, really dull. From my eyes, I would have said Fogo actually looked the better team. They had a bit more stability about them, and they looked a lot more dangerous on the break. Actually, for me, really looked with sort of Igor Jesus and players like that looking a little bit more dangerous. But to be honest with you, James, I'm being a little bit kind to them actually there, because they did miss one or two chances. Weatherton made a couple of saves in the Palmeiras goal. Overall, it was just a really, really tepid game of football. Palmeiras were booed off at the end, I believe. Abel Ferreira is not making many friends at all. And he did make a comment about the fans, I think, something along the lines. I think Fogo were giving it large because obviously they won it last year, and they were goading a lot of the fans, Palmeiras side, their fans and everything. And I think Pereira made a comment about he didn't hear, or you didn't hear us doing that when we won the league the previous season. So he's got himself in a little bit of hot water. It didn't go down very well with the Palmeiras fans at all. He has since come out and apologised for his words, but they've got a massive game in the Libertadores this evening, actually, James, 11 p.m. UK time. Fogo are having a stinker. They've lost already in the Lib. The holders, they lost to Chilean side, Universidad de Chile, who themselves haven't started very well in the Chilean league, although they came second in it last season. So, and like I said, they out the two teams, I thought Fogo looked the more dangerous, but it was a very tepid game of football. And I think ultimately Fogo might have been happy with the draw, more so than Palmeiras, because they were the home side. But ultimately, it's such a poor start, and also, you have to say both Fogo and Palmeiras will be sort of thinking their seasons both start this coming weekend. Fogo have Juventude, Palmeiras are away to Sport Recife, so yeah, maybe it starts for them this time. But ultimately, I'm going to make a prediction, James, here right now today. I think that if Fogo do not win against Juventude, I think Renato Paiva might get sacked.
I mean, that's an incredible claim, really. He's had 3 games, I think. That would be something. I mean, it wouldn't be completely nothing's off the table in Brazilian football, I don't think. So he quite clearly wasn't the first choice when they brought him in. I know they had their eye on more high-profile managers or just any other managers. Really, he seemed quite low down the list, no matter what Textor was trying to say when he signed him. I think he was trying to kind of play up that he was always in there in the mix, but I don't think he was. But judging by how long it took them to get him in and the other managers they kind of looked at, so yeah, maybe you're right. I think Ferreira might as well be one who you probably look at and think a few results go against Palmeiras, and he might be one who's really under pressure as well. But like you said, it's probably a better point for Fogo in the end. But at the same time, probably the two teams probably shake hands on a draw and move on, and like you said, get the win in the next round and kind of build on that really. Palmeiras obviously have the big game in the Copa Libertadores. Fogo, it's not the way they would have wanted to start. At least we're at home to Juventude. You would kind of back them to win that. But having watched the game, George, what were your kind of takeaways from Fogo in particular? I mean, Palmeiras, we know what they're all about. They've obviously signed Vitor Roque, and they've signed a couple of other players as well who didn't really. I mean, obviously they didn't make an impact from an attacking point of view. Torres, especially, obviously Estevao couldn't do anything, make an impact in the game. But Fogo, what did you see from them? Did you see signs that you think they can be challenging for back-to-back titles?
Well, just a word on like Palmeiras, James, before I go on to Fogo, really. But I thought Vitor Roque was awful, to be quite honest. Estevao would look the only danger out of the whole team, to be quite fair. He looked like the one to get something going. The rest of them just looked awful, to be quite honest. Torres as well. Facundo Torres, was a lot made of him before the game. But Vitor Roque was a ghost. Fogo, yeah, like I said, out the two teams, they looked the more attacking, the more kind of the one to win it, if any of them was, if that makes any sense. Igor Jesus looked a little bit of a danger, although I know he got sent off late on in the Libertadores last night, didn't he? 2 very, very late yellow cards resulting in the sending off. He looked kind of, lively. I don't think they'll challenge, but they were definitely the better of the two sides this time. I think both teams will have a poor season, James, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, Fogo, they sold 4 really potent attacking weapons: Tiquinho, Junior Santos, Luis Enrique, and Thiago Almada. Of course, those 2 last ones really big losses. So no surprise, perhaps, that they haven't been able to find the net. Okay, George, anything you'd like to just add on that game before we move on to the second game of the week?
No, it was great to watch, James. Actually, as much as a boring game it was great to kind of see live what the games are like. I've only ever been able to had the pleasure of watching a handful of Brazilian games, so I was excited to watch it, but disappointed in the end with the overall quality of the game. But not surprised, really, to be quite fair, with a game early season. Everybody, like you said, shake hands on a draw and move on.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And we'll try and get more eyes on games as the season goes on, of course.
Definitely.
Right, brilliant. Thank you, George. Well, let's move on to my game of the week, which was another big game. To be fair, it was, like we said last week, it was the 4 teams that we put in our title challengers kind of episode. So I was covering Flamengo against Inter at the Maracanã. It ended 1-1 in the end. So just like Fogo and Palmeiras, they couldn't be separated, which was probably not a surprise, to be fair. I'm not sure what we did on the predictions, but I think maybe we just had Flamengo edge in it. But they've been in fantastic form. Obviously won the Carioca, won the Super Cup as well. Felipe Luis has been tipped for great things. He's even been kind of in the conversation for the national team job, which we should mention as well, along with Mano, where Dorival Jr. was relieved of his duties. So they're on the lookout for a new coach, and Felipe Luis has been mentioned as a candidate. But in the end, they couldn't get past Inter, who will be pleased, I think, with the point in the end. It was a difficult game for them. As expected, Flamengo kind of dominated in terms of possession, in terms of shots, in terms of pretty much everything. But the thing that went in Inter's favour was that they got the first goal of the game, and it was a really, really good goal as well. Brilliant move all the way from the kind of defensive third all the way down the left wing, into the middle, back out to the left wing. It was a great cross by Alexandre Bernabé, who's been a really good signing, obviously brought in permanently from Celtic over the summer. And Bruno Henrique with an absolute brilliant volleyed finish. It was really nicely taken, kind of pulled the volley a little bit into the corner to put Inter ahead. And against the run of play, you have to say, really. But Flamengo rallied back. And they did equalise early into the second half. It was a bit of a scramble in the area, which Leo Pereira eventually bundled home. But yeah, Flamengo couldn't go on from there and win it, George. They had to settle for a point. I think it's one of those where, again, you probably shake hands on a draw, but I think Flamengo will have probably felt that they had the better of Inter here, and they probably felt that they should have won it. One thing for Inter was that the goalkeeper, Sergio Rocher, was injured, and that was the big talking point. From the Colorado's point of view after the game. He had to come off at half time with a fractured hand. So as a goalkeeper, that's obviously a pretty big deal. The Uruguayan, I think he's still a Uruguayan number one. He has been in the past. And he was replaced by a fella called Anthony, who actually there's a bit of a story behind it because Rocher, although he was the number one last year, has picked up a bad injury during the Gaucho. He picked up an injury during the Gaucho and had to step out most of those games, and Anthony came in. And they actually won it, of course, for the first time in, I think, 8 years with Anthony as the goalkeeper. So Rocher got fit for the first game of the season, and he's had to go off injured again. So Anthony's only 23. He's a relatively young keeper. We know Inter's history of goalkeepers with Mr. Becker. So perhaps he's another one to keep an eye on there. Rocher's about 10 years older. He's a relative veteran, 32. So Anthony's a young goalkeeper coming through and perhaps one to keep an eye on, I would say. But George, I don't know what your take on this point was. For me, a much better point for Inter. Mercado and Luiz, for my money, probably the best two managers in the league at the moment. Yeah. And I think I saw a stat that backed that up heading into the season so far. So, yeah, Flamengo probably slightly disappointed, but ultimately this early stage of the season will probably settle on a point.
Yeah, I think, but yeah, again, it's the same as Fogo and Palmeiras, James. I think, like you said, we tipped them, all four of them, kind of in the mix for title, challenging. And I think, yeah, they'll shake hands on a point. Looking at the kind of stats and things, looks like Flamengo dominated the game. But like you said, the goalkeeper situation, it could have had a bearing on it. We'll see how the young lad, gets on now. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, you shake hands on a point, and the season for them too as well probably starts this coming weekend, doesn't it? Really, with potentially, easier kind of games. Obviously, Flamengo do play. Early hours of tomorrow morning in the UK in the Libertadores against Venezuelan side Deportivo Táchira. So, there's a lot of travelling for them to do before their away game to Vitória on Sunday. So, they'd expect to win that game. But I think ultimately Inter can come out of it. They'll probably see it as a better point, really. I agree with you, though, James. I think both Felipe Luis and Roger Mercado are two of the top managers in this year's league so far.
Yeah, on current kind of form, I reckon so as well. Inter have got Bahia coincidentally in the Copa Libertadores, and all Brazilian tie, an all northern Brazilian tie there. So a big game in that part of the world this evening, 11 p.m. UK kickoff for anybody who wants to stay up and watch that. Okay, George, that I don't think there's too much more to say on those two. Obviously, four good teams cancelled each other out. 2 points, all the points shared, sorry. So why don't we move on to the first 2025 Player of the Round, George? It's a much coveted award. Last year, the first one was won by our friend Jean Carlos, and there might be another Juventude player who's celebrating this one. Wrong music.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's not playing. All right, well, bodge that one. But anyway, it's going to play in a minute anyway. But let's move on anyway, George. Let's move on to the player of the round. I gave a bit of a clue there, but before we introduce him, and we have spoken about him last year, there were a couple of contenders, I felt anyway. I thought one that was worth mentioning was Cruzeiro's right back, William, who, if you remember, George, there were some unsavoury scenes in Cruzeiro in Belo Horizonte in the before the season kicked off. William was one of those who was strung up as a mannequin above the overpass for missing penalties in the I can't remember who they were playing. Actually, it wasn't against Gallo. It was the other side from Belo Horizonte, America Mineiro. But yeah, William, a couple of nice assists, and I don't know if you saw those goals. There were two absolutely brilliant crosses into the box.
Yeah, I love.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, that's the play of the round music. Sorry, William.
There's words on that one, but maybe not.
I think they might come later on, but William, two absolutely wonderful crosses, two wonderful goals, very, very similar to each other, kind of a ball in whipped from deep, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I especially like the second one, James. I mean, the goal from Gabigol, I mean, I won't spoil it for people, but it will be coming up, the goal of the round. But for me, this was in the contention for goal of the round. It was a lovely crossing. It was a lovely finish from Gabigol, showing the Cruzeiro fans what they can potentially, got to look forward to this season. It was a wonderful finish. But yeah, he himself, I thought, William, he had a great game. Two lovely assists, and like you said, making up for his penalty miss. Although nobody should be subject to that kind of treatment from the fans. It was quite disgraceful, that, to be fair. But he's come back well, and he's obviously, we'll probably be singing his name now. He's two assists. They won the game. So, although they were quite lucky, I think, to win that one in the end. But, I thought he had a good game also.
Yeah, he certainly did. And they missed a penalty, didn't they? Mirasol, Cassio made a save and was potentially in the running for that reason as well, for the player of the round. But yeah, well done to William. A big win for Cruzeiro. Like you said, Gabigol getting what was the winner in the end in that one. And another player I thought was in the running was I think you kind of put him down, this fellow, fired some shots at him last week. Vegetti of Vasco. I think you were kind of writing him off a bit, saying he was a bit kind of past it. And I don't know what prompted that really. He had a good season last season, and he's come out firing this season. Santos for Vasco was not an easy game to kick off with all the kind of the hype surrounding them. But yeah, Pablo Vegetti, goal and an assist. Can't say fairer than that.
Vegetti, he must have heard me, and he thought, well, I'll show him what I can do. He scored, a goal and assist in the opener on Sunday. James also in the Sudamericana. He got 2 goals last night, and they drew 3 apiece with Peruvian side FBC Melgar. Your mate Phil Coutinho, he got a goal and an assist in that game as well. So Vasco scoring plenty of goals to begin with. Corinthians on Saturday, that looks a little bit of a tasty game. Of course, no, he's not the former manager. He's a former manager, isn't he, of Corinthians? He used to manage Vasco, didn't he? So he'll be looking forward to that one. Will Mr. Ramon Diaz. So so that's the Ramon Diaz derby on Saturday. But yeah, Vegetti, I apologise to you because you start the season well. And maybe Vasco, going to put my prediction to, in the toilet very early on. I don't know.
Well, he's got 10 goals in the Brasileirão, Carioca, and the Sudamericana and the Copa do Brasil already, 10 in 14. So he's in hot form. Yeah, Phil Coutinho incidentally scored a screamer, a classic Phil Coutinho goal during that game. So well done to him. But neither of those two did win the award in the end, George. That did go to... With a drum roll, it went to Bill, George. Juventude's Bill.
Bill, yeah. It's 2 years in a row it's gone to a Juventude player. Fair play to them. I think they had a good result, I think, on the opening day last season. It was I can't remember what it was, James. But obviously, Jean Carlos had it was a 2-0 win over Corinthians, actually. So he obviously he scored a goal in that one, I think, didn't he? Maybe got an assist. So Bill with 2 goals, they beat Vitoria 2-0. And he was actually, James, playing with an injury in the second half of this game. So even more kudos to him for continuing and, securing the victory for his side, So that was, brilliant. Fair play to him.
Yeah, fantastic. I remember him going through a bit of a dry spell last year. I remember missing a penalty or something that he scored, and he hadn't scored for a year or more than a year. He had a bad injury or something. But yeah, he got 2 goals in this one and saw off Vitoria in a really strong start, you have to say, for Juventude, really. We don't quite know what they're going to be. It's hard to say. Obviously, they had Mercado behind them last year at the start of the season. And we know how good he is. This year, they've changed manager twice since then. They've got Matthias, who obviously kept them up. But yeah, a good start because Vitoria, that could be a bit of a shootout. That could be very, very important later on in the season, couldn't it? By these points they all add up to the same over the course of a season. You think, it's one game, you don't know where teams will be placed, but you back these two to be down near the relegation zone, and if they are, then that could be an enormous 3 points really at the end of the day for Juve.
Oh, it definitely could, James. I mean, it's 2 promoted teams from last season, and yeah, it could be. You don't know how these teams are going to fare. Thiago Carpini, I'm a big fan of, as you know. Obviously, not a good start for Vitoria, but they could be. So these sort of games, you've got to win, isn't it? You've got to win these sort of games if you want to stay in the division. And any win against a team that is in and around you is massive, really. So it's a great start. It was a great goal to begin with for Juve as well. He absolutely blasted that in the top corner. Second one was a bit fortuitous for me. It was a deflected effort, but he still goes down as his goal. So he wins the player of the round. The goal of the player of the round. Yeah. So fair play to him. And he came out and said this. Obviously, he was injured. He was carrying an injury, James. So he said, I was scared because the shoulder had come out of place. But in the locker room, the doctor reassured me. I did all the tests. There was nothing to do with the ligaments. It was more of a muscular injury. I put on some bandages, ended up locking it up, and managed to return for the second half. I'm happy to have returned and scored another goal. I have a full week to recover as well. So that's what he said afterwards. I was delighted with his couple of goals, helped the team massively. And I think Matthias was obviously really, he was, buzzing with the game as well. He said they controlled the game and he was very happy with how they played, I think, from the first minute. So fair play, really a big win for them. And let's see how they get on. Like you and I think are in agreement that they're probably not going to be relegated. I said they're going to flirt with it. I think they will be down there, obviously, but I don't think they've that much to worry about, really.
Yeah, I think they'll be fine as well, and this is a good way to go about that. Bill only got 2 goals in the whole of last year. I think they might have come in the same game, but I might be mistaken on that. He's got 3 already this year in 8 games across all competitions, and with 2 goals, he was the only player who scored a brace this opening week. So he's the early leader in the top scorer charts, that's good enough reason to give him the player of the round. So well done to Bill. There we go. Can't stop playing it now. It's
you like that one.
It's quite good, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, let's move along, George. Let's keep the awards coming, keep the music playing, and let's come on to the Young Player of the Year, Young Player of the Round.
What future ahead for this guy?
Yeah, I kind of hate that one actually, but let's.
You'll be hearing it a lot, so yeah.
Future ahead for this guy. Who wrote those lyrics?
Well, I don't know. You're gonna have to have a word with the band, aren't you?
I don't know. Yeah, Mysterious band. Anyway, that signals the young player of the round, George. And there weren't many contenders. There was a couple of contenders, weren't there? But there were. I mean, look, you've watched the game this week, as regular listeners will know. We don't tend to manage to watch the game, so we try and go off basically, who's affected games, who's come up with goals, who's come up with assists, and there wasn't a great deal to go on this time, was there, with the young players?
No, I think the only other one really that may have been in contention, James, was Abner. He's as well playing for Juve. He got an assist for Bill for his first goal. But again, it was a little bit of a hit it and hope kind of punt up the top of the pitch. And Bill was, he did his thing. He got on the end of it and nicked it past the defender and blasted it in the goal. So how much sort of you can give to Abner, although he goes down as an assist. Assists are a little bit of a myth for me, really, aren't they? I could blast it to you, and you could do all the work and I still get an assist. So it's basically who just passed the ball to him beforehand, isn't it? So, but with that being said, he still had to do the action, didn't he? But yeah, there wasn't a great deal to go off. And you put to me this lad, didn't you, as well? And he did get an assist as well, didn't he? The winner of this week's young player of the round, he did get an assist.
Yeah, he did. I mean, just on Abner, he's probably one to watch. He's only 20. He's kind of broken through at Juve this season. He's played 10 games across the Gaucho in the Cup. He's actually scored twice. He's got 2 goals in the Gaucho from centre-back. So I'd say he's one to watch, Abner. Only 20, so only just actually no, he's 21 in a couple of weeks' time. But a very young defender, actually. So it might be tough for him in a team like Juventude to stand out, but he'll get plenty of opportunities given that, they'll be on the back foot for a lot of games. So, but yeah, he did. It was a bit of a hit and a hope. But the one that was not a hit and a hope, George, like you said, he didn't win the young player. There weren't many others in the running, to be quite fair. But the winner, and yeah, you're right, I was pushing for this chap, was Breno Bidon from Corinthians. And he, by all accounts, had a really impressive game. I saw some kind of hype from various of these accounts on Twitter who kind of know about these things, digging into his performance a little bit more. Like I said, he got the assist it was a very late goal, actually, equaliser for Hector Hernandez, I think on his debut possibly, or one of his first games. A Spanish fella coming into Corinthians. They were missing Depay, who I don't know what's up with him, to be honest, but he wasn't playing. Obviously, we know they got knocked out of the Copa Libertadores. They are in the Sudamericana. I think they lost as well, didn't they, in the first game of that? But anyway, that won't affect Breno Bidon, and it was a really, really. I mean, we talked about William earlier on with 2 really nice assists. This was very similar, actually. It was kind of a cross from the left side this time from deep, whipped it across, and it was a really tidy finish to tie the game right at the end. So, yeah, I don't know what you made of it, George, but Breno Bidon, we did speak about him last year a little bit. Corinthians had a few youngsters who were quite talked about coming through. He didn't really seem to show up a lot last year. I mean, Corinthians had a tough start, obviously, but even when they came good at the end, he didn't seem to be one of the ones who was really on the radar, but he certainly stepped up with a big moment early on this time.
Yeah, he like you said, there was certain hype about his performance over the internet, and yeah, definitely want to keep an eye on. I do remember him from last season. I think we did speak of him once or twice, but like you said, he was a bit in and out of the game. He did play last night in the defeat to Huracan, wasn't it, of the Argentinian side, 2-1 defeat at home. Not a good result, really. And he played the last sort of 18 minutes or so of that game. Depay was back in the team. Yuri Alberto was back. He played against Bahia as well, I think. But a little bit of a disappointing start for Corinthians there, really. But Bidon sounds like he's definitely one to watch, so we'll have to keep an eye on him. And he might well be the new kind of Estevao or these sort of type of players. I know Estevao was leaving in the summer, so we've got to. He dominated this award last season, didn't he?
Yeah, he dominated a lot of awards. I mean, Bidon's a kind of defensive midfielder. I think he's kind of similar to the chap who they sold, Moscardo, to PSG. I don't actually know what's happened to him, Gabriel Moscada. He had a terrible injury, and I don't think he's really playing much at all. Oh, sorry, he's at Reims this year on loan from PSG. He's not played a lot for those. So yeah, I think Bidon might have to look at Moscada as a bit of a cautionary tale for perhaps leaving too early. But as a defensive midfielder, it would probably be hard for him to be as much in the spotlight as Estevao, but he certainly looks like he's going to be a big part of Corinthians this season. But yeah, a slightly disappointing start for them, although I do think a draw away at Bahia isn't necessarily a bad result, although they did score with a very late, one of the last kicks of the game. I think Bahia will be disappointed not to have held on to that, obviously. But Bahia, we don't know what we're going to get from them this season, really, do we, as well? But they had 10 men as well, Bahia, for most of that second half. So to be fair, they've done well to hold on as well as they did. Obviously, we know they're in the Libertadores tonight against Inter, so that's perhaps a bit of a bigger game, maybe just because it's the occasion of them. I don't know whether that's the first time they're ever in the Libertadores, but it wouldn't surprise me if it is. So, bigger fish to fry, perhaps, but still a good point. Again, one of those where you probably say a good point for both teams.
It probably is, James, but they, like you said, they would be disappointed to let it slip right in the very last. Playing with, 51 minutes, Everton got sent off his second yellow. So to hold out, they'd probably have taken a draw at the start. Being at a 90-minute equaliser is always disappointing. But like you said, I do think Rogério Ceni will put a lot of weight on the Libertadores. I think it probably is the first time in that competition. It's an all Brazilian tie. It's a special night for them, really. So, as the season goes on, I'm sure they'll focus more on the league, but you can forgive them a little bit for getting a little bit excited, really, about this game tonight.
Yeah, there was over 40,000 in the stadium for the game against Corinthians. They've obviously, there'll probably be more this evening. I don't know, but it's it's obviously a special time for them. So they'll have been pleased not to lose that one. And we'll see how they get on against Inter. It's not going to be easy for them. Inter, of course, much well versed in the Libertadores, and as we know, one of the favourites for the league this year. So, George, that was the young player of the round. Not too many to go into this time, but things start slowly. I'm sure one or two will, or many more really, will come to the fore as the weeks go on. Players that we haven't heard of at all yet, players that we don't know, who've never played before, will emerge and probably get moved to Chelsea. We'll see.
And then never play.
Yeah. Anyway, let's keep things rolling. So the first awards of the season are done, out of the way. Player of the round, young player of the round. Let's see what the Talking Brazil Ball band have cooked up in terms of a goal of the round. We might have heard it already, actually, just a brief snippet of it. There we go. That's a goal of the round music. And this one was a difficult one, actually, George, to be fair, wasn't it? I mean, it does seem to happen occasionally in the Brasileirão that we get, I don't know how many. I mean, you said there were 22 goals. I haven't counted them, but watching them back, I guess at least 10 were headers. There were so many headers, all different kinds of headers as well, close-range headers. There was a really good header from quite far distance from Fortaleza. I can't remember who it was, but from kind of the edge of the area. There was a diving header in there as well. From Dudu, I think it was, Cruzeiro. There was all sorts of headers, but there was a lot of headers, and that makes it difficult to pick one, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does, James. Actually, I think there was actually less goals than I originally counted, to be honest. But I'll have to recount it. But
the quiz is void now.
It was definitely less than last year. But I have to just probably double check it. But yeah, anyway, regardless, yeah, there was a lot of headers, and this week it does, like you said, it occasionally happens. Sometimes you get a few belters, and you're like, it's a little bit of a headache to choose one. But in this sense, it was a little bit of a bad headache. Really, it was a normal headache because there was no standout goals. A lot were headers, not really that special headers either. Like you said, there was a lot of different kind of headers, but ultimately there was some very average goals as well scored with the feet as well. It wasn't a very exciting round for goals, it has to be said, and it was very difficult to choose one actually. And I think we disagreed really with the eventual winner. I think you just let me have it really, but I think I don't think you agreed with me really, did you either?
No, I don't think I did. I mean, to be honest, I think the goal of the round was Bruno Henrique from Inter. I really do. I think it ticks all the boxes. It was a really good move. I mean, you're going to claim that the one that you've chose was a really good move, but there was about 3 passes in it. This one was about 7 or 8, and it was well worked down the left. Great ball in, brilliant finish. Ticks the boxes, but you've gone a different way with it, haven't you? And you've. I mean, I understand the reasons behind why you've chosen it. But do you want to introduce this the first goal of the round winner of the year?
Yeah, well, the winner, James, is Mr. Eric Ramirez from Red Bull Bragantino, and he scored the last goal of the round actually in the 90. I think it was after the 90th minute actually. 93rd minute of the game, 3rd minute of injury time to equalise the game against newly promoted Ceará, a home match. In the end, it is a decent point when they were 2-0 down at half time, James. No, they were 2-1 down, sorry, at half time. Scored very on the stroke of half time and then basically at full time. So it can be seen as a good point in that sense, but ultimately they'll probably be disappointed not to beat a promoted side at home on the opening day, really, when they look back at it. But this goal, I thought, was just nice. And in terms of it got them the point, basically, and it got them something from the game, was partly the reason why I chose it as well. It was a nice cross in from the right-hand side, and Ramirez he's just sort of swept it in quite first time, a bit of pressure on, added on time, and he's cool as a cucumber, as they say, and he just puts the ball in, edge of the box, stroked it in with his left foot. I just thought it was quite a nice finish, and Armand Barbosa with the assist down the right hand side, coming back of course from Santos, and he's had a successful loan move with Juventude, didn't he, last season? And, he's getting in on the axe already. So I just thought it was a nice goal to begin with, really, James. Although, like I said, it wasn't a standout goal, really. And he had this to say after the game. He was delighted. Of course, we wanted the 3 points to start the championship with a win. But unfortunately, we didn't play a very good first half. In the second half, we managed to impose ourselves. We played our game. Unfortunately, we didn't get the 3 points. But a point in the Brazilian league is always important. So he's basically saying we played rubbish in the first half. They were 2-0 down. But in the second half, they booked up their ideas and they got a point. And I think Seabra he said it gives him mixed feelings, because I think, again, he was disappointed with the first half showing. But, they improved clearly after the break and got themselves a good point in the end when it's late on like that. I did really like the goal that Marlon scored. They were 2-0 up, Ceará, within 23 minutes. And this was a header, but it was a lovely kind of from a corner, but it was just a lovely placed kind of header. But yeah, I like that goal as well. But I don't know what your thoughts are, James, on either of those two teams.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to Ceará. They've come out for 23 minutes and blown Red Bull Bragantino away, and Seabra must have been absolutely furious at half time. I know they got one back before half time, but you can't start that way for the season. The way that Bragantino ended last year, they were basically, they were so lucky to stay up. They stayed up at skin of the teeth, and to start the next season in the manner of that way is just unforgivable, really. So, of course, they'll be pleased to have got back into it, and that last second goal, obviously, the way to the goal with the last kick of the game to get the equaliser is probably what tips it for a goal of the round. Even though I don't necessarily disagree, I can see that. But again, they've got no right to be particularly pleased with that, I don't think. I think one thing that's important to note with Ceará is we talk about these promoted sides, and we always touch on how they're going to stay up, how they're going to get goals, basically. That's the most important thing. And Pedro Raul got the first goal of the season for them, and he's actually got 6 in 7 appearances so far. That was obviously his first appearance in the Brasileirão this season, his first goal of the season for the club. And yeah, he's looking like a good bet early on. 6 in 7, that's a really good record to start the season with. And if he can keep that up, then Ceará have got a real chance of staying up.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like you said, James, it's a really good record to begin with. And, you've got to say, like we said before, promoted sides, who's going to get the goals? Goals, obviously, so important. But, you need a talisman up the top of the pitch that can score the goals. And obviously, he started in the right way. Obviously, Marlon, who we spoke about, he's at the back. So the onus is not on him to score goals. But, yeah, likes of Raul and players like this for Ceará, very important. So he's started in the right, in the right vein. So it's good to see. I know two of the 4 promoted sides got on the board, didn't they, in terms of points. So it's good to see. They all didn't lose the games, and they're being competitive, even if they lost the game. Mirassol and Santos still competitive in the defeats. So yeah, good to see.
Yeah, and you have to say we haven't spoken about them at all just because it was such a poor game. But Sport Recife got a fantastic draw away at Sao Paulo, 0-0. I mean, that's a really eye-catching result from a newly promoted side. So, yeah, 2 of them really good points away from home, both of them as well. So Ceará Ceará, a big club, as we spoke about, not relatively. So they'll be hopeful now to kick on. They've got Grêmio in the next game at home, first game at home. As we know, they share the stadium with Fortaleza, don't they? So it's a big stadium, Castelao. So let's see if they can pick up a win with that, the first home game. But yeah, a poor result for Red Bull, but they'll go again. They can't be as bad as that again. I don't think in the next game they can't afford to be. They can't turn up again with that kind of attitude. Fluminense away. Obviously, their new manager, Renato Gaucho, will be keen to impress. So, all in all, a better point for Ceará, but again, they'll be disappointed to have only got the point in the end. Anyway, that was the goal of the round. There we go, George. So that's the awards done. Round day 1, week 1, ticked off, all 3 attributed. All that's left to do, well, there's a few things left to do, really, isn't there? But let's go through the fixtures for next week first, and let's pick out our games of the round.
Yeah, let's do that, James. I was waiting for some music. We haven't really. Oh, we have got it, haven't we? But so Saturday, the 5th of April, it all starts again, James. Incidentally, I do need to get your predictions off you, which I will do later on for the weekday, for match day 2, which we will post on our Instagram account probably tomorrow. But it begins Saturday, the 5th of April. Ceará, like you mentioned, James, they host Grêmio, 10:30 kickoff UK time. Also, at the same time, Corinthians host Vasco, which looks like a good-looking game. Like I said, the Ramon Diaz derby. They're into Sunday, early hours, April the 6th. Fogo, they host Juventude. Then at 8 p.m, my team Galo, looking for a first win of the season, they host Sao Paulo. Also at 8 is Flu against RB Bragantino. And then 10:30 p.m. English time, Inter host Cruzeiro. Mirassol, their first home game of Serie A, they face Fortaleza. Sport Recife also at home to Palmeiras, and Vitória host Flamengo. The match day ends, James. The match week ends on Monday, the 7th of April, 12:30 midnight kickoff here. Santos, their first home game of the new season, they host Bahia.
That's right. Lots to look forward to. Obviously, the season's still very, very, very fresh. Confidence high. Amongst pretty much everybody. I don't think anybody has been absolutely walloped, have they? I mean, Fluminense probably got the worst result, but new manager, new beginnings, all of that. They'll be hopeful. I think Santos might start feeling the pressure if they don't get a win early doors as well. But George, there's a few kind of eye-catching ones there. There's nothing mega standing out. But there's a few that look like pretty good games. So what are you going for as your game of the week?
Well, it's early on, James, and we're still kind of feeling it out, aren't we? We don't know how the table's going to pan out. We don't know how it's going to fall. So we're just kind of picking games off kind of what looks kind of decent match. And for me, there's Inter Cruzeiro looks quite a tasty one, and Flu, like you mentioned, with Renato Gaucho in that could be interesting against RB Bragantino. The one I'm going to go for is my team, James. Look at my team for the first time this season. I'm going to go with Galo Sao Paulo because I think that sounds quite a good game on paper as well. So I think I'm going to go with that one this week.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice. I was thinking maybe that Ramon Diaz derby, Corinthians Vasco looks quite
That
decent.
also is a good, yeah.
Yeah, Fluent. I was thinking Fluent, Red Bull Bragantino as well with the new manager and everything. But I think I'm going to go for Santos. Let's take a look at Santos and see how they bounce back from defeat on the first day of the season. Bahia, obviously coming back from at that late draw against Corinthians, will know by then how they've managed against Inter in the Libertadores. So I think that's going to be an interesting look. I was thinking about Mirassol as well. Of course, their first ever game in Serie A at home against Fortaleza. They might have an eye on that. Fortaleza are obviously much better at home than they are away, but no mugs, of course, on any ground. But yeah, I think I'm going to go for Santos and Bahia this time around. Okay, that's the games of the week locked in. And let's do the table, George, the inaugural table. Obviously, you can't glean much at all from the table at this time. I mean, some people say don't even look at the table until 12 games or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm one of them who's straight on the table straight away, looking at it, wishing you'd got the points that you didn't get if you've drawn or lost. So why don't you give us a rundown of what the table is looking like after just one match day?
Yeah, it would be my pleasure, James. So top of the table is Fortaleza on 3 points. In second is Juventude on 3. Third, Cruzeiro on 3. Fourth, Gremio on 3. Fifth, Vasco on 3. Sixth, Chiara on 1. 7, RB Bragantino on 1. 8th is Corinthians on 1. Inter, 9th on 1. Bahia, 10th on 1. 11th is Flamengo on 1 point. 12th is Fogo on 1 point. 13th, Palmeiras on 1. 14th, Sao Paulo on 1. 15th, Sport Recife on 1. Galo at 16th on 1. Mirassol 17th on 0. 18th is Santos on 0. 19th is Fluminense on 0. And 20th is Vitória on 0.
That's it, though. We'll pull you up. You actually said Gallo on 1 point there. That was wishful thinking. They are on 0 as well.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's me kind of, dreaming of 1 point for Gallo.
Keep dreaming, big lad. You might need to keep dreaming after this weekend. Sao Paulo may turn up and do you as well. But Flu won't be looking at the table this early on. I think they'll have bad deja vu of last year when things started in a similar way. Fortaleza will be dreaming of staying up there at the top. It's all still to play for. Ceará up in the Libertadores qualification place is good to see. But yeah, like we said, you can't really tell much at all from that very early table. So, George, that's it. Day 1, week 1, all boxed off. What are your thoughts, final thoughts after what has been quite a serene opening, really? There were 21 goals actually in the end. I counted them back up, so not a lot at all. Bit of a gentle way into the season for us.
Well, it is, yeah. And at Galo, I'll just point, they did draw as well in the Sudamericana last night, James, with Peruvian side Cienciano, and that was in Peru. So, yeah, a little bit of not a great start for Kuka. He really does need to improve, but it's early days, like you said. And yeah, it has been a little bit of a somber kind of opening, easing us into it. Instead of it being loads of goals, loads of bangers going in and whatnot, red cards here and there. It was quite a tepid opening round, really. But yeah, as the seasons go on, as the weeks go on, I'm sure we'll get those, great games, controversial moments that we like to see as kind of neutral. Well, not neutral, are we? But as fans of the league, should I say? So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It'll all come. I'm sure it'll all come next week. So we'll be back again on Thursday to round up everything that we've just previewed that's going to be going on. looking forward to it. Plenty to get stuck into. And we're trying to plan you out. So I think all that's left to say, Jordan, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the other side. See you next week.
Yeah, see you next week, everybody. Enjoy it. Adios.
Adios.
Brazil ball, we're breaking it down. Bringing the passion from every town. Let the world be filled with love tonight. Sway to the beat, make you feel so right. Summer, summer vibes, we're dancing in the heat. Go, go, go. Can't be beat, something Brazil, go spread love in every way. Make the sound of paradise. We're here to stay.